Water." The couple shot each other a look, eyes wide. Who could possibly be asking for water? They got out of bed and began searching the house. "I need water. Please." Titi's heart raced as fear tightened its grip on her chest. Without another word, they ran to the kitchen, filled a large drum with water and threw the ring into it. The moment the ring hit the water, the crying stopped. Silence fell over the house, and for a moment, all they could hear was the sound of their own breathing. The water in the drum began to churn violently, bubbling as though it were boiling. Titi and Joshua watched in shock as the water inside slowly turned. The drum, now filled to the brim with crisp banknotes, shimmered under the dim light. Right on top of the pile, the ring sat gleaming, as if proud of what it had just accomplished. It was a bright afternoon in the bustling streets of Lagos, where the air was filled with the hum of motorbikes and the chatter of traders. Titi walked into the small, cosy salon at the corner of the market square. The vibrant colours of the walls and the pleasant aroma of hair products greeted her as she stepped inside. The salon was busy, filled with the sound of laughter, music, and the rhythmic snip of scissors. Titi smiled warmly at the stylist and sat in one of the chairs, eager to get her hair braided before heading home. As she leaned back, enjoying the gentle tug of her braids being woven, her eyes wandered around the salon. Her gaze stopped at the reflection of the station next to her in the mirror, a silver ring, delicate and adorned with tiny, intricate carvings, lay abandoned on the countertop. That must belong to the last customer, Titi thought to herself. She glanced around, but didn't see anyone nearby who might have left it. The other women were engrossed in their conversations, and the stylists seemed busy with their work. Something about the ring drew her in. It was not flashy or gaudy, but there was an aura around it, something mysterious. When her hair was finally done, Titi waited a few minutes to see if anyone would come back for the ring. The day had grown late, and as customers finished and left, no one returned for the forgotten jewellery. Hesitantly, she picked up the ring, sliding it into her pocket with the intention of returning it if she ever saw the owner again. As she left the salon, the weight of the ring seemed unusually heavy in her pocket, but she brushed off the strange feeling. That night, Titi returned home to her husband Joshua in their modest house on the outskirts of the city. They lived quietly, working hard to make ends meet, but like many others, they always hoped for a better life. As they prepared for bed, Titi mentioned the ring to Joshua, who shrugged it off. "Just return it if you ever see her again. No big deal," he said casually, already drifting off to sleep. Titi nodded, placing the ring on the nightstand beside her before turning off the lights. They soon fell into a deep sleep, the soft hum of the night around them. However, around midnight, a faint, eerie sound pierced the silence. It was so soft at first that Titi wasn't sure if she had imagined it. A tiny, delicate voice, almost like a child's, whispering, "Water. I need water." Titi jolted awake and shook Joshua. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Joshua groggily sat up, listening. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Water. Please, water." The couple shot each other a look, eyes wide. They lived alone, no children, no visitors. Who could possibly be asking for water? They got out of bed and began searching the house. They checked the kitchen, the bathroom, the hallway, every corner, but the voice persisted, seemingly following them from room to room. "I need water. Please." Titi's heart raced as fear tightened its grip on her chest. "What is happening?" she murmured. The voice grew louder, more insistent. Desperate, They went back into the bedroom and suddenly Titi's eyes fell on the ring. It was glowing faintly, sitting innocuously on the nightstand. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "It's the ring," she whispered. The tiny voice seemed to emanate from the ring itself. "Water! I need water!" Titi and Joshua were frozen in disbelief. What kind of sorcery was this? Was the ring alive? Was it cursed? Without another word, they ran to the kitchen, filled a large drum with water, and threw the ring into it. The moment the ring hit the water, the crying stopped. Silence fell over the house, and for a moment, all they could hear was the sound of their own breathing. But then, something even more incredible happened. The water in the drum began to churn violently, bubbling as though it were boiling. Titi and Joshua watched in shock as the water inside slowly turned, changing from clear liquid into something shiny and golden. The drum, now filled to the brim with crisp banknotes, shimmered under the dim light. Right on top of the pile, the ring sat gleaming, as if proud of what it had just accomplished. Joshua was the first to speak, his voice shaky. Is this real?" They tentatively reached into the drum, pulling out the notes. They were genuine, crisp, and plentiful. Their shock turned to disbelief as they realized what had just happened. The ring had somehow transformed water into money. Titi looked at the ring, her mind racing. The woman who had left it behind at the salon, did she know about its power? Or had Titi stumbled upon something much bigger, much more mysterious? That night, they couldn't sleep. The ring lay on the table between them, glowing faintly, a silent promise of endless wealth. But the mystery remained. What was the origin of this ring, and why did it cry for water? The next night, as they lay in bed, the familiar whisper returned. "Water. I need water." This time, they didn't hesitate. They hurried to fill another drum with water and dropped the ring in. Once again, the water turned to money, filling their house with more wealth than they had ever imagined. Days turned into weeks, and every night, the ring's demand for water came. Each time they fulfilled it, the drum would overflow with money. Their once modest home soon became filled with riches. They bought new clothes, a new car, even started construction on a bigger house. But as the wealth grew, so did Titi's unease. She had never returned the ring, and part of her felt guilty. Yet with each passing day, the lure of the wealth it provided overshadowed her guilt. She and Joshua justified their actions, telling themselves that the ring was now theirs by fate. One evening, as they sat surrounded by their newfound riches, Joshua asked, "Do you ever wonder where this ring came from? Why it does what it does?" Titi hesitated, then shook her head. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is that we're wealthy. Let's just be grateful." But deep down, Titi knew that something wasn't right. There was a cost to this kind of magic, and she feared that one day they would have to pay it. That night, the ring's cry for water was louder, more insistent. They quickly threw it into the drum, and as usual, the water turned to money. But this time, as Titi reached for the ring, she noticed something. Its glow was fading, and the carvings on it seemed to be shifting, rearranging themselves into a pattern she hadn't seen before. The ring no longer looked like the simple, forgotten piece of jewelry she had found in the salon. It had transformed, and with it, a dark, uneasy feeling crept into the room. As Titi and Joshua stared at the ring, a question lingered in the air. How much longer could they keep this secret, and what would happen when the ring's true purpose was finally revealed? The days following were filled with even more wealth. Titi and Joshua basked in their luxurious new lifestyle, but the mysterious ring never left their minds. Every night it cried out for water, and each time it was placed in the drum, more money appeared. Yet, with every cycle, the ring's glow dimmed further, and its carving shifted into more complex patterns, almost as if they were speaking a language they couldn't understand. Then, one evening, after another night of wealth and whispers, something different happened. When Titi dropped the ring into the drum, the water didn't turn to money. Instead, the surface of the water remained still, and the ring sank slowly to the bottom, its faint glow extinguishing entirely. Titi and Joshua exchanged worried glances. For the first time since they had discovered the ring's power, it had failed. "What's happening?" Joshua asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Titi replied, her own voice shaky. Suddenly the water began to bubble again, but this time it wasn't turning to gold. Instead, a thick mist began to rise from the drum, swirling around them in eerie silence. Titi reached into the water to retrieve the ring, but her hand passed through the liquid, as if it were no longer solid. A cold wind swept through the room, and from within the mist, a figure began to take shape. It was a woman, her face obscured, but her voice was unmistakable, the same voice that had been crying for water every night. "You have taken what is not yours," the woman said, her voice both sorrowful and stern. "This ring was never meant for greed." Titi stumbled backward, her heart pounding. "I didn't know! I thought it was lost!" The figure's eyes glowed through the mist, piercing into Titi's soul. The ring was a gift, a sacred bond between the living and the spirits of the water. It was never meant for your desires. Now the balance is broken. Joshua, too frightened to speak, watched as the woman extended her hand. "Return the ring," she commanded. Titi, now fully aware of the danger they were in, reached into the drum again. This time, her hand touched the cold metal of the ring, but it was no longer the same. The once intricate carvings had become sharp, jagged symbols, and the ring felt heavier than ever. She pulled it out and held it toward the misty figure. "We didn't mean to," Titi began, but the woman interrupted her. "It is too late. The spirits demand what has been taken." With that, the mist swirled faster, and the room was filled with a deafening roar. The house shook as if caught in a storm, and the wealth they had accumulated, the piles of money, the luxury items, began to disintegrate before their eyes, turning to dust and blowing away into the wind. Titi and Joshua clung to each other, terrified as everything they had gained vanished. The woman's voice echoed around them. "Greed has a price. You sought wealth without understanding its true cost." And then, with a final gust of wind, the mist dissipated, leaving Titi and Joshua alone in the now empty house. The ring lay on the floor between them, dull and lifeless. For a long time, neither of them moved. The silence was overwhelming, and the weight of what they had done pressed heavily on their hearts. The wealth was gone, the ring's magic spent, and they were left with nothing but regret. As dawn broke, Titi picked up the ring one last time. She walked outside to the river that ran behind their home, and without hesitation, she threw the ring into the water. It sank, disappearing into the depths where it belonged. Titi and Joshua stood at the river's edge, their hands intertwined. They had learned a hard lesson, that true riches come not from magic or greed, but from the honest work of their hands and the love they shared. And as the river flowed peacefully, carrying away the remnants of their folly, they knew they would never seek such power again. They had been given a second chance, and this time they would use it wisely.
So guys, hope you enjoyed the story. The moral of this story is that greed can lead to trouble. Titi found a magical ring that gave her and her husband lots of money, but they kept using it without thinking about the consequences. Even though they became rich, They didn't realize that taking more and more without giving back would cause problems. In the end, the magic wasn't meant for them, and it all disappeared because they were too focused on getting richer. This story teaches us that it's important to be happy with what we have and not be greedy. Working hard and being honest is better than using shortcuts or magic to get what you want. It also shows that everything comes at a price, and if you're not careful, greed can make you lose everything. Always remember, the best kind of wealth is love, kindness, and peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey with Titi, Joshua, and the mysterious ring. If you enjoy this tale of adventure, mystery, and life lessons, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. And if you're ready for more captivating African stories, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out. There's always a new story waiting to be told here on African Tales by Imadi. See you next time for another unforgettable adventure. Bye guys!